Hi, almost everyone is watching my channel without a subscription. Please support me and subscribe. I release videos every day for you. Story 1. I lost my job and I'm afraid to tell my wife, and she thinks I'm cheating on her, and I'm having an affair. First of all, no, I am not having an affair. I love my wife, 35F, and I will not do something so vile like that. My wife and I have been married for 8 years now. Together we have a 4-year-old daughter and a newborn son of 10 months old. Recently, the company I used to work for suffered a huge loss, so they had to lay off a lot of the employees. I was shocked. I didn't tell my wife about it. I am in a lot of stress with no job and 2 kids in this economy would be difficult. My wife recently joined the workforce after staying at home after the birth. I have always been a primary breadwinner of our family. I made good money. My wife earned less than I did, so I took the role of primary provider. Now that I have lost my job, there will be money trouble for a while. We do have savings, but without a steady income it will be hard. Like I said, I have yet to tell my wife. I don't know how she will react. Of course she will be sad, and I am afraid it is going to put a strain in our relationship. I am afraid she will stop seeing me as a man and resent me because I cannot fulfill my role as a husband and a father anymore. It has been 2 weeks. There are 2 weeks I just pretend I got to work, but then again, I just go to the local park and sit there. I either read or search for other jobs. I come home the time I usually come home. My wife did notice I have been depressed lately, and we haven't been intimate. She asked me if something is wrong. I said nothing. Last night she asked me if I didn't love her anymore. My heart just dropped. I think she thinks I am having an affair, but I cannot tell her that I got fired. What should I do? Comments. First of all, man, very sorry. That's a very crappy situation to be in. But you should have told your wife when you got laid off. Keeping something like this is not going to make it any better. This is something that you just can't continue to prolong. You must tell her. Especially because finances are going to be super tight, she needs to know. So she can be a little more careful with the spending. As far as viewing you as a man, things happen. It wasn't your fault. It's not like you got yourself fired. She most likely would have helped you with your job search, and it could have eliminated some of the stress the past 2 weeks. Not married, but I've been with my boyfriend for 5 years, and we're planning on getting engaged next year. 2 years ago, he was laid off. He called me crying. I just walked him through it and told me it was going to be awk. Helped him find a new vision. He is now in that career currently. I wish you the best of luck with finding a new job. Having 2 kids, especially a young one, is very difficult to be unemployed. But you need to speak to your wife immediately. It is going to put a strain on your relationship because you've hidden it for so long instead of telling her when it happened. You may not be having an affair, but you are doing a good job at shattering any trust she has in you. Op replies, I don't want that. Tell the reason why I didn't tell her because I didn't know how to. Also, I have been reading a lot of articles and videos that says once a husband loses a job, the chances of divorces are high. I've always liked being able to be the provider of my house. Now that I lost that role, it has put me in a strange position of not knowing what to do. It was one of the reasons why my wife respects me a lot. I do not want to lose that. Update. I tried to make an update, but the mods removed it. I'm really thankful for this people in subreddit for knocking some sense into me. I talked to my wife. I told her that I got laid off 2 weeks ago. I opened up to her about my own insecurities, that I feel completely worthless because I promised her that I will provide for her and she never has to worry a day in her life. That now that I do not have a job, I felt out of place and a little ashamed that I have let her down. Well, she headbutted me with her plushie and said I am an idiot, and I have hurt her by making her think that I was having an affair. I told her that I would never do that to her. I love her so much. I asked for her forgiveness, and she says as long as I'm not having an affair, she doesn't care. We talked about it a lot. She reassured me just because I do not have a job at the moment. She doesn't see me as any less of a man. She says I can still provide for my family. We talked about the finances, and she told me she would earn for both of us from now and told me not to be too hard on myself. I need a break after grinding and sacrificing my hours. She also told a story that when we were first dating, I helped her pay her bills for 3 months, and she promised that she would pay me back. She said that it's her turn to support us. I've decided that I should rest now. I've been so wrapped up because of my job, I hardly made time for my kids. I am kinda enjoying it. I spend more time with my kids. We do have enough saving to get us by for quite some times. In the meantime, I would look for another job. I guess I let my insecurities get the best of me. Thank you, Reddit. Story 2. My boyfriend, 26M, found out I'm 26F, rich, and started using it against me. My boyfriend and I met through a dating app 8 months ago, and we've had a good, steady relationship. I come from a well-off family, but my parents never spoiled me. They taught me to not indulge in excess, and to keep my privilege in mind when interacting with people. I'm currently living in an apartment with only my salary. I haven't told my boyfriend about my wealth. I wasn't actively hiding it. It just didn't come up. My birthday was a few weeks ago, and my parents threw a party at our home. Our home is a medium-sized villa. My boyfriend started scowling when I told him that that was the home I grew up in. When I asked him about it, he told me it was nothing and started smiling again. His mood got worse as more and more of my parents' rich friends started coming in. When I asked him about it the next day, he just told me that he was feeling a little sick. After we got back, he asked me why I hid the fact I was rich. I told him that I wasn't hiding it, but he started bringing it up in every conversation after that, like telling me that I didn't know how to cook properly because I was spoiled. He brought it up with his friends, telling them I was a spoiled princess who had everything handed to me. It started as jokes, but got more hostile as the days went on. When I brought this up, he told me I didn't know normal people problems because I was rich. Did I do something wrong? What should I do? Update. After I made the Reddit post, I tried to have a conversation with him, but he kept stonewalling me. He made more snide comments, and I decided to break up. When I told him that I was leaving him, it felt like he was expecting it. He called me a rich bitch and went on a rant about how I was leaving him because he was poor. Some commenters told me to expect this, but it still came as a shock. He and I have very good salaries, and I don't know why he said that. He was a good person most of the time I knew him. Some people asked me why I didn't warn him about my wealth. All my relationships before him were with people in my social class, so the expectation of wealth was implicit. Having wealth was not a big deal in any of my previous relationships, so I assumed it was the same in this one too. I'll warn my partners before taking them home in my future relationships. This is a tangent, but I wanted to talk about I'm not rich. My parents are a thing that many comments suggested. A lot of my friends from wealthy families use that line as a defense, but it is misleading. If I wanted to, I could dip into my parents' finances. I choose not to, but it is still my wealth too. It might technically be my parents' money, but it still makes me wealthy. And having wealthy parents comes with a lot of privileges even if I don't actively use their money. I never had to work a job when I was studying. I had access to the best schooling. I don't have student loans, and my parents' connections open a lot of doors. Having a safety net let me find what I was good at and let me take risks. So, unless they are estranged from their families, children from wealthy families are also wealthy. I thank all the people who commented on my original post and gave me advice. I felt like I was doing something wrong, but you made me see that it was his insecurity and jealousy that was the issue. Story 3. AITA for making my brother's wedding reception about me. I, 25F, am a bridesmaid to the fiancé, 30F, of my older brother, 31M. She and I aren't particularly close, but I don't dislike her, and I suspect she asked me just because I'm my brother's sister. I of course agreed, and I was even fine with her putting me in whatever style she wanted so long as it didn't involve me cutting/dyeing my hair, any major changes. It's not my day. I can suck up an ugly dress and act like it's gorgeous if that makes her happy. The issue, however, is that I'm a wheelchair user. I know that the wedding venue is fine for me as it's our local church, totally accessible, so all good. It's the venue being used for the reception that worries me. I asked her where the reception was going to be and if it was accessible for me and had an accessible bathroom. Just covering my bases. She didn't get back to me. I figured she was busy, so left it a week or so before chasing her up again to re-ask. She told me she wasn't sure, so I asked where it was, and she told me. I ended up looking up the building and my heart sank. It is an old building, not accessible at all for me, and no bathrooms I could feasibly use either. I told her this, and she got very upset, saying my brother had told her that he'd cover the cost and she should just pick whatever she loved, and that she loved this. She then went on to suggest that we could just have someone carry me into the building, and my family or the other bridesmaids could help me use the bathroom when needed, which the very idea of mortified me. I'm not about to agree to being carried in and needing help to go to the bathroom. I ended up giving her two options. If she wanted me at the reception, she needed to pick somewhere that was accessible. If she didn't pick somewhere accessible, then I'd of course still be her bridesmaid at the wedding, but I'd have to skip the reception. She got upset at this, as she feels like everyone, especially my family, will notice my absence and question it, and it'll make her look bad. She then told me I was making this about me, which wasn't fair when it was her day. I won't lie, at this point I was enraged. I wanted to tell my brother to let him sort this, but I wasn't about to start shit between them over this, and I pointed out to her that yes, this was her day, and I had no intention of making about me. However, by marrying my brother, she was joining our family, and she needed to realize that she was not as sensitive as she thought she was, and suggesting that I be carried into the building and aided going to the bathroom was downright insulting. This led to a larger fight, and she told me if my brother didn't already know I was her bridesmaid that she'd not want me to be it anymore. I called it quits at that point and told her she had my two options, and it was up to her which she wanted. Am I the asshole here? I don't feel like asking for the minimum. Accessibility is a lot, but maybe I'm too upset by the situation and her suggestions to see it clearly. Relevant comments. More about why she hasn't gone to brother yet. That's a good idea. I may have to talk to him about this. He is not at all inconsiderate, which is why I've been hesitant to get him involved, as I know, with most people, he'd get angry over this, and I don't want to start a fight with them. He likely assumed it was obvious that any venue needed to be wheelchair accessible. About the fiancé. I really hope it's not an indication of a cruel streak, as I don't want to think that of her. I'm really hoping it's just the stress of the wedding getting to her, but maybe I should bring it up to him before they get married to be safe. I will likely discuss this with my parents too and get them to weigh in on this matter. Update. Hi everyone, here's an update to the situation. As many of you suggested, I checked in with my brother and told him what was going on, and I found out that the reason he'd let the reception to her was they'd made an agreement with him covering the ceremony and she'd cover the reception. We're Catholic, so he cared more about the religious side of the event, while she cared more about the reception/party, as she's not religious, which isn't a bad thing, just different. I showed him the texts and explained what had happened. He was pissed off at her suggestion I be carried into the building and assisted in going to the bathroom, and after only a quick search of the venue she'd picked, he could also see it wouldn't work out for me and promised he'd resolve this and have a talk with her. He was annoyed at me for not bringing this to his attention sooner and told me I shouldn't worry about his feelings over this. The best part of all of this, the venue isn't even booked yet. He had assumed she'd pick out somewhere accessible, but has admitted that he should have ensured that and not thought it a given, so he has told me he'll see it's changed, and if it isn't, they have a bigger problem on their hands. The part that really got to him, though, was the admission that she didn't want me as her bridesmaid, if he didn't already know, and he told me in that case he didn't want me being her bridesmaid, and instead wanted me to be his groomswoman, which I agreed to. I've yet to hear back from him on what's happening, so I can only wait and see. I'll update further when I know more. Update. Sorry for the late update. A lot has been going on behind the scenes, and I've been spending time with my brother in the aftermath, so I've been busy. My brother's now ex-partner refused to reach a compromise on the reception venue, despite days of arguments between the two of them, and apparently even demanded to know what mattered more to him, her having her dream reception or me being there, and she didn't like his answer to that question at all. Likewise, he was disgusted with her attitude, and apparently this wasn't the only red flag, just the biggest one he'd been unable to overlook. For instance, she kept insisting on getting our mother's engagement ring early, which my brother didn't cave on, thank God. My brother is the oldest child, so was promised our mother's engagement ring that has been in the family for generations. He made it clear to her that she'd get it once they were officially married, and got her a cheap placeholder until then, but she'd apparently been kicking up a fuss about it every so often, trying to get into cave. I was totally unaware of this until he told me. My brother apparently told her he loved her, and he wanted to work through this with her, but they needed serious couples therapy before he'd go ahead with the wedding, even suggesting that I tag along for a family's therapy appointment to get to the root of her apparent problem with me, which she didn't take well to telling him if the wedding was off they were breaking up, which he told her that was her decision and he wouldn't fight her on it. So yeah, he's been hanging out at mine a lot, and I felt incredibly guilty over this shitstorm, but he won't hear any apologies from me on it, saying it's better this came to a head now. He's also wanting to take me and our parents on a family holiday with the money he was going to use for the wedding, so he has something to look forward to. I don't want to say we're well rid of her, as I do think she had some issues that my brother was right they'd have needed to resolve in therapy to become a healthy couple, as she seemed to think there was some kind of competition for his affection going on. Anyway, that's where things are right now. I just thought I'd let you all know, as I know many of you were wondering about the aftermath.